Good morning. I think it's on. Hello. Good morning, Goshen College. Yes, how are we all doing this morning? Hi. I am so excited for some awesome storytelling this morning, but I only have to take a moment of your time for a quick announcement on behalf of the Chapel Convo Committee. On behalf of the Chapel Convo Committee, you will have noticed that we've been experimenting a little bit with our ID scanning models in this space. Back in October, we started with our ID scanning model in the front and moving out through the main rows, as you've all been seeing. And my only main announcement today, well, two things. One, thanks for your flexibility and understanding. This has been an effort by the Chapel Convo Committee to re-examine how we're using the space, and also best practices in terms of kind of encouraging, where people sit and things like that. And also to make sure that our awesome ID scanning staff, thank you staff, are not swarmed at the end of Convo when we're ID scanning, which is important to give them a little bit of space and to make that move efficiently. And so just to say to everybody, once again, thanks for your flexibility and understanding while we're working on these kinds of questions. We will be, again, this morning, after Convo, having ID scanning in the front and moving through the main aisles out these double doors to either side. But do be aware that we are still examining this. We may make another change in the future. That's not to cause confusion. It's just to keep working on efficient ID scanning and think about, again, what's best for the space. If you have any feedback for the Chapel Convo Committee about ID scanning in general, we'd love to hear that, and I'll be putting a little notice in the communicator at the beginning of next week. So for feedback, if you have a thought that you want to share, please do that, and you can do that through the communicator in the coming week. But anyway, that's far enough from me because we have some storytelling to get to, and Jody is going to be awesome and introduce some storytelling today. Thank you all so much.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So glad to see that the room is full this morning for our storytelling convocation. I've had the happy pleasure of coordinating the Core 100 Identity, Culture, and Community course this year. And a highlight of that course, which all of our first-year students take, is the Story Core assignment at the end of the semester. So each student chooses a moment from their life that represents their identity, culture, or community in some way and shares it with the class. And we've had our ICC professors nominate some students that we thought would be great to share their stories with all of you. And so we have 5 storytellers with us this morning. I'm going to introduce them now in the order that they're presenting, and then they'll just come up each one in order. So our first storyteller this morning will be Anton Alstrom Brooksizer from Goshen, Indiana, and he is a music education major. Our next speaker will be Felipe Magoyan Molina, who is a physics engineering major from Bogota, Colombia. Then we will have Isabel Woodcox, who is an environmental science major from Warsaw, Indiana. And then we'll round off our storytelling today with 2 speakers, Alyssa Munguia, who is a math education major from Elkhart, Indiana, and then Josiah Miller, another math education major from Cedar Springs, Michigan. Now, I want to remind you why we share our stories. Storytelling is a key piece of building community. We have to be able to share our authentic experiences, and we have to receive those stories from others as well. So I'm asking you please today to honor the time, the vulnerability, the courage of our storytellers on stage this morning. And for the next 30 minutes or so, if you'll put away the outside world, let go of your busy to-do lists, and let's just be here today, receiving these stories and building our community together. So I thank you for being here. It's going to be a great convocation.
Hello, everybody. Cheers. I'm sitting on the beach, letting my senses guide my thoughts. My toes are digging into the cold, damp, and gritty sand. I can hear the breeze swaying through the trees, the occasional cicada or tree frog chirping, and of course, the gentle waves lapping against the shore. Looking up, I can see the stars twinkling above, watching over the small, crackling campfire, bringing warmth to a chilly, early summer evening. I'm seated at a beach campfire, my favorite space for reflection at Camp Friedenswald, the peaceful woods. So, I worked at Camp Friedenswald this past summer as a counselor, and every evening we have a campfire. This is a time for telling stories and singing songs, and just building in community with one another and with God. And normally these are tucked away in a little hollow in the woods, but for the final campfire every week, we go out on the beach instead, which offers some extra space for reflection and just time to think about our week and our past and our future. So I'm sitting here on the beach campfire, reflecting on my first day when I arrived at camp. I arrived a little bit late. I was thrown straight into a name-building game or a name-learning game, where we would go up to people, introduce each other, and then do a funny little handshake relating to a specific animal, like the narwhal. Afterwards, we went canoeing. We did a variety of team-building exercises. We moved into our rooms. We had our first meal together. And then we went to sleep with our roommates for the next 8 weeks. Back to the present, back then I felt so, maybe anxious was one of the words. I didn't know what this summer would hold, but I also had a lot of anticipation. I was really looking forward to getting to meet everybody and just enjoy my time at camp. But now I feel like those were such big feelings, and now I feel so confident and excited. I'm really enjoying my time this summer. My one problem is that I still don't feel particularly close to anybody at camp. The one person I do feel close to was my girlfriend. We got together at the end of my senior year. She was not working at camp. She was working a job that she kind of hated and going home to a family that she didn't feel properly supported by. And so I felt a sense of responsibility, I think, to be that support for her that she couldn't find. So I spent a lot of time on my phone, texting and calling and trying to stay connected with her, instead of hanging out and talking and building community with my friends at camp. So moving on to my last day at camp, we went swimming for a final time, doing all the things we told our campers we shouldn't do, like jumping off the top of the slide and having 3-person high chicken fights. We had our final meal, which was a concoction of leftovers from the past week. We wrote thank you notes to each other. We have a big yellow sheet, and we all get for every person, and we wrote something nice or something that we appreciate about every other coworker at camp. We had our final funny moments, like waxing weird shapes on each other's legs and spewing all the brain rot that our campers imbued us with. And I stayed up till 3 a.m. for the final time, having deep conversations with my friends from camp. And so the next morning, we move out, give our final hugs, and on the car ride home, I just kind of have a realization that I still don't feel close to anybody. I really enjoyed my summer at camp, but there was so many people that I wish I had gotten to know better. And so a couple weeks after that, me and my girlfriend ended up breaking up, and it kind of brought to light everything that I was feeling at the time. And I kind of realized going forward that I wanted to spend more time connected with the people close to me. I want to focus on the people that I see and talk to every day, instead of trying to reach on to somebody far away. And it wasn't that I regret the summer in any way, but As I went to Goshen College, I wanted to spend more time connected in the present with the people near me. And so far, I've been more than pleased with the relationships that I've been able to properly form, and I'm looking forward to my next summer at camp when I can truly connect with all my friends on staff and once again enjoy working at the Peaceful Woods. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Felipe Mogollon, and today I'll be talking about the day I graduated from high school. First, I will give you some context. I'm from Bogota, the capital city of Colombia, and there I grew up and I went to my high school. In Bogota, we have prom ceremony. That is a ceremony in which the students go to the school with their families and they receive their diplomas for graduating from high school. Sometimes there is a party after that ceremony. For me, that day was 1st of December of 2023. But it was special, because that year I was committed to come here and study in the United States. So I was giving all of me in all the aspects of my life. Also, I had always been a good student, but I had never been committed to that level, so I was never the best. From the beginning, that day was different. I was driving to the school, and that was special to me because all my life I was used to go to the school by the school bus. Then I arrived to the school and I went to our room with all my classmates, and we got ready. Now imagine that the ceremony is in a hall like this one, and that we are entering from the door behind you. We were entering, and as we were entering, we were seeing our families. And they just seemed so proud because we were graduating from high school. We walked in, and we sat down in the first rows. Then the ceremony started. It started with the national anthem and with more protocols, and then they started giving prizes. They gave prizes because of English level, because of national exam, and because of other projects. Then they mentioned the Academic Excellence Prize. I was nervous because I wanted to win it. And then they mentioned the winner, and it was not me. I was sad and kind of upset, but then they mentioned another prize, the prize for the best bachelor. They called me to the stage, and I was so happy. I went out of that hall, and then I saw my dad, my mom, my brother, and my grandmother. All of them were with tears in their eyes because they were proud of me. That was one of the best moments of my life. And in that moment, I realized that I want to give all of myself every day, just to make the people that I love proud of me. In that moment, someone took us a picture, and she said that everyone in the picture had a prize. Look, that's the picture. Every time I look at that picture, I'm just very happy because I remember all these moments. Sometimes we ask ourselves why we have to work that hard, why we have to wake up early. But today, I want to ask you, why not? Why not to give the best of ourselves every day and make the people that we love proud of it? Thank you.
All right, hi, good morning, everyone. So, when you look at a group of pictures like these ones, how does that make you feel? What about these next ones? So some of you might feel shocked or disgusted, or maybe you feel a little bit curious about this. But for me, these are some of my favorite pictures, and they bring me joy. So this all started when I was 4 years old, and I wanted a puppy, as most children do. And my parents made me a deal that if I wanted a puppy, I had to prove my responsibility first by taking care of another pet. And my mom's only rule was that it had to live in a tank. So she took me to the pet store, and she expected me to get something small, like a fish, or maybe even a hermit crab. But unfortunately, this pet store had just received a shipment of baby corn snakes. They were off in a different section, a different hallway from the rest of the store, away from the birds chirping, the rodents chattering, and the bright fluorescent lights shining down. And I was obsessed with them. This snake was what I wanted. And my mom thought that if I knew what I was getting myself into, I would change my mind. And so we convinced a pet store to get one of the snakes out to let me hold it, thinking that would dissuade me and force me to make a better decision. Unfortunately, holding the snake only made me want it even more. That big white snake up there is Squiggles, who is my first pet and who will turn 15 in a few weeks. Since then, I have kept about 4 snakes, 3 tarantulas, 2 lizards, 3 frogs, 3 rabbits, 2 dogs, I did eventually get the puppy, and thousands and thousands and thousands of assorted invertebrates. Because of this lifelong interest in weird creatures, one of my dreams ever since I was a kid was to travel to the Galapagos Islands. In summer of 2022, I found out that my uncle, who was a Spanish teacher, was taking a group of his students and family down to Ecuador, where the Galapagos are located. I begged my family to let me go, and once again they made me a deal, that I could go if I paid for the whole thing. And they didn't think I was really going to do it, but my junior year of high school, I got a job, I worked a ridiculous amount, I paid for the whole thing. It was really scary, and it was a lot of work. I had never flown before. I'd never left the country, much less doing something like this without my parents. But I was determined, and when I got off the plane, it was all worth it. So we landed in Ecuador and took a boat out and ended up on Isla Isabela, which is the largest island in the Galapagos. And everything from the ocean to the beaches were covered in marine iguanas, huge sea lions, little lava lizards. But what I really wanted to see were Galapagos tortoises. On one old man's farm, he had converted the fence around it to be able to contain his cattle while allowing these giant tortoises to come and go freely. And the tortoises loved it. He opened it up to the public to walk through and hope to see some of these tortoises. So we went, and I saw not just one, but probably 5 or 6 adult Galapagos tortoises. So there we have one of my life's dreams ever since I was a small child fulfilled. But while I have traveled across the world to pursue these weird creatures that I love, what I really care about is here locally in the people and in the communities around me. This is my little brother. He just turned 11. He is the one who I teach everything I know, I share all of my knowledge with, and he is my salamander catching partner. I try to tell him everything I know, and I hear him share it with all of his friends, and it gives me some hope for the next generation that they may grow up continuing to be kinder to those that are small. And that's what brought me here to Goshen to pursue my degree in environmental science. I want to be able to get an education that enables me to make a difference in my local community. My main interest is in wetland conservation, and I would love to be able to help people grow to understand and appreciate more about the world around them. I hope to be able to use my passion and my interests to encourage other people to get out and understand more about the world around them. I understand that it can be easy to look down on animals that are a bit stranger or a bit weirder looking, or to be afraid of them, but we are only really afraid of what we don't understand. And I encourage you all to try to make an effort to understand. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something as small as just taking the spider in your bathroom outside instead of smashing it. Or maybe you could plant a garden of local plants. Or even just go to the zoo and read all of the signs and learn about what you're looking at more. But above all, I encourage you to just try to see the beauty in everything that the world has to offer, in the biggest places and in the smallest creatures. And if nothing else, make an effort to love the unloved. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. First, I would like you all to imagine. Imagine yourself in any particular course. Imagine yourself in this course, and you start off very strong. You enjoy the course, and it challenges you. You're putting all your effort in this course, and you learn a lot. But as time progresses, imagine yourself slowly begin to understand the material less. And you rapidly notice your grade decreasing. Reluctant to ask for help, you choose to suffer in silence, because after all, you hate to seem like a burden on anybody. During my first semester here, I struggled with this a lot. I was very intimidated by new people, new settings, and even some of my new courses and professors. Though it wasn't the best feeling, through my story, I've learned that asking for help is my power, and the only mistake I can make is not asking. But before I begin my story, I'd like to give you all some background information. I come from Elkhart, Indiana, and I graduated from a school called Elkhart High School. And during my time there, I was known for being very independent and outgoing and open-minded, which is completely different from how a lot of my professors see me right now. I was well active in my school and pushed myself academically to be the best version of myself. My schedule was full of dual credit courses. I was a tutor for math for 2 years. I took college summer classes, and I often did multiple education programs at my school. I had never needed guidance from anybody. Matter of fact, I had never even known what it was like asking for help or failing at anything. But to start my story, I would like to bring you back to October 24th, 2024, my first semester in college. It was Sunday about 10 in the morning, and I was driving to the Starbucks right across from where I lived. That was where I would be meeting my first ever academic helper, or tutor, if you will. I had finally bit the bullet and got one, after struggling for 3 months. When I got there, I got out my notes. I was rereading my notes and doing anything I felt I needed to do to prepare. While I was sitting in those seats, while I was breathing in that atmosphere, I took a moment and just froze. I froze in the fact that I had given people so much help before, and I couldn't even admit to myself that I needed it and what I tell my students. And now I need help at my very low point, and I just started to think very low about myself. Just as these thoughts came across my mind, my tutor arrived. Luckily, my tutor wasn't just some stranger. She happened to be one of my old high school teachers, Eileen Corson. Although I had known her, I was still nervous, just knowing the fact that I had been excelling in her class and doing the best I could, being the best student in her class, and now I'm struggling more than ever in my life. Once we got started, though, it went pretty smoothly. In total, we worked for about 3 hours, and we worked on a particular course that I was struggling in, and she taught me some new techniques and some new problem solving for other classes too. After working for a couple of hours, me and my tutor decided to catch up. She asked me how life was going and asked me about my new experiences and my feelings. And reluctantly, I didn't want to tell her about my struggles, but I did. For a moment, though, I watched her facial expressions change after I said that. She had been somebody I really looked up to in high school and felt comfortable around, but I had not recognized this face she had put on. She turned to her side, picked up a pen, smiled, looked down, and started writing. At first, I thought she was crazy because she just changed moods all of a sudden. But as I was sitting there waiting for her, she looked up at me and smiled again and handed me a yellow sticky note. As I took the note and held it, I began to read it in my head, but just then she ran it back out to me. It's okay to take one thing off my plate when everything else is suffering. My mental health is more important than my ego. I am enough. This saying not only gave me hope, it gave me guidance. And hope in the fact that maybe after all these new challenges, I could finally get the help I needed. And hope that maybe I could finally get some relief by taking that one thing off my plate. So as much as I hate to admit it and have never admitted before, I have failed for the first time academically and I needed help. But that's okay, because after all, that yellow sticky note was right. Even if I ask for help, it wouldn't hurt me. What hurts me is letting my ego and pride get in the way and come before my needs. With this, I began to feel different. Different in the fact that my new beliefs and understandings had changed, or maybe because I was learning things I thought I had already known. Through all my struggles, it was a dark time for me, but only in the dark can you see the light. And I learned to be more comfortable to ask for help as I go through college. I learned that my ego shouldn't stand in the way. I learned my voice is my power, that I am enough, and most importantly, that it doesn't matter how often I fail, how I fail, or even when I fail. What matters is the way I'm able to pick myself up, the way I'm able to overcome my fears, and the way I'm able to grow. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Josiah, and I'm from a really small town called Cedar Springs in Michigan, and it's small enough that basically meant my family would drive somewhere else for pretty much everything. So today I'm going to tell you the story of how this past fall I got to watch my high school running team win the biggest competition of their season. And so this team is called the Peregrines, and they are from Grand Rapids, which is the nearest big city to me. And this team was kind of special because it didn't have anything to do with a school. It was just a club team for homeschoolers like me, or people who went to a school that was so small it didn't have its own team. And so we had this really kind of random mixed group of people that came from up to like 45 minutes in every direction of the city. Like me, it could be like way down to the south in the opposite direction. Like people were from everywhere. And so this wasn't some big team that was used to winning by any means. In fact, it was the polar opposite of that. Especially when I joined during the fall of 2020, kind of in the peak of COVID, and the program was really, really struggling. It was a super small team. Our coach was working really hard to keep it going, but on our guys team, we had 7 people, which for those of you that don't know is the minimum amount you need to score for a team. And so if somebody was gone for the weekend on vacation, there just was no team. We couldn't really even compete. Despite that, this team meant everything to me. This is where my dearest friends in high school came from, my best friend in the world. And we were such an insanely tight-knit group of people. And all throughout high school, the team grew and grew in size from that first year. And we were just all so close still through the whole thing. If there was one of our teammates was in a school play, there would be 2 rows of seats filled with Peregrines, ready to give them the standing ovation at the end of the project. And there was also, it felt like, every once or twice a week, there would be a flood of happy birthday messages from everybody here for whoever happened to have a birthday on that particular day. So it was an amazing group of people, and it was like my whole life. It meant everything to me. So let me talk about this past fall then. I had graduated, and I went down to Nashville to watch this team's last competition. So every year we have a competition in Nashville, which is super cool. We kind of consider it our nationals, even though it's sort of a small school nationals. And we have a full weekend in Nashville, all staying with the team. It's our biggest competition. So my coach was there as well, and I got to watch this race unfold. And as I watched these teammates of mine, many of whom I knew, some of whom I didn't anymore because I was graduated now, I was just blown away by how much they had improved, and especially in comparison to when I first joined that team 4 years earlier. Like, these were strong runners, really skilled runners, and just genuinely impressive. And they were running an incredible race. And as we watched at the finish line, we could kind of count the points up. We could sort of start to tell what position the team was in compared to the other teams that were there. And in doing that, this is me and the coaches at the finish line, we were thinking, okay, they did really well. This was a really good year, but I think they got second place. I think that's where they ended up, which was really good for us. That was a super exciting moment, even still, but it was just that little aspect of, oh, it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. So something unique about this meet is the race finishes and they don't post any team scores until you get to the award ceremony, because they want some drama and grandeur around it. So we knew nothing as we walked kind of across this big, wide, open field in the middle of Tennessee to this tiny little stage where all the runners were gathered around. And they start to announce the winners. They do the podium as they normally do. They announce third place, somebody else, and the team around me is getting excited. They're getting ready, like, okay, this is going to be us. And then they announce second place. And it's Central Kentucky, this other team that they had been facing. And in that moment, everyone just went wild in the Peregrines group. People were jumping up and down. They were shaking each other by the shoulders, clapping and yelling. And my coach had tears in his eyes, and I had tears in my eyes, because that meant that the Peregrines had actually won this competition. And so I got to watch all of these teammates of mine go up there and accept the trophy for first place. And this whole time I was just picturing what it used to be, that team of super tight-knit people who were fully devoted to this, despite the fact that we were this tiny team that could hardly even compete and never did anything really worthy of note. And so I am just so grateful that I got to see that. And even though I didn't directly get to be a part of it, it kind of felt like I did, but not because that win necessarily was what it was all about. Like, the Peregrines team is such a large part of my identity that I will always feel like I'm a part of it and that it is a part of me. But it meant everything to me long before there was that they became something impressive. And for that victory was all the more powerful of an experience. I think that it is really important to attach ourselves to things and let them have meaning for us, regardless of the expectation of success, to let there be this meaning for its own sake, because that makes those beautiful moments of achievement all the sweeter. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming, and I hope you'll take a moment to share your appreciation with our storytellers. So if we could give one more round of applause for all of our storytellers. Okay, thank you, and you're dismissed.